how we can get support. So I think very lucky to have them. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Mohtam Saab, Untitled Chapter, that we can go ahead and get started. So Mohtam Saab, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Jazakallah Mohtam Saab. My name is Zishan Ahmed and I am serving as Mohtam Untitled Chapter. Hopefully everybody is staying home, staying safe, and I'm hoping that you can see me and hear me clearly. Let me share my screen. Today we have beside me Naib Mohtam Saab Umar Shahid Bhai. He's going to talk about the tips and tricks to file unemployment benefits. And we also have Anas Chaudhry Saab from LA. He is serving as Regional Nazim Sanat Tijarat. He will be talking about the arts of saving. So let's get started and get right into that. So these are some of the things we will cover today. We have put together different resources and we are sharing them among our membership. And we also have created a form beside those resources for anyone to fill that. And we've been calling them and talking to them what kinds of needs they have, and if they need something right away, or if they need to apply for the job or unemployment. So the first thing we need to understand is in this pandemic that federal government has released few plans to cover different communities, like people who are doing small businesses, and they are running out of money to pay their employees, and they have put together something for the people who are getting laid off, and also some, beside the federal government, there are some state governments who are helping the unemployed or the small businesses. That all comes under the CARE Act, and the last update was on March 30th to 2020. And this will cover most of the Americans, even if you are a gig economy worker like a Uber driver or a DoorDash or anything like that. So let's move on. These are the links to apply for unemployment benefits. You know, every state is taking it or dealing with it slightly differently. But once you will go to that link at the top, that is from the Departments of Labor, and it's state specific. It's for the people, especially living in US. They are born and raised in the US and very good with English. It's easy for them to understand. It's like self-explanatory. But for the people who are the new immigrant, the refugees, they need help, and we are trying to help them. And we have also a link here for the state workforce agencies for FAQs. It covers a variety of topics. So if you are unsure about something, you can reach out to us, or you can go to that FAQ link to get better understanding of what's going on and how to file and what kind of benefits you will get out of that.
Mohtam Saab, sorry to interrupt you.
Ji Umar bhai.
Your screen is not shared.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me actually go back. Okay, Umar bhai, can you see it now?
Yes, we can see now.
Okay. So I was talking about, how state and federal government was covering different communities, like small business owners and some individuals. And then I moved on to this slide where I was talking about filing for unemployment benefits and FAQs. Moving on, there are some key points to understand that there is typically 26 weeks that federal government covers you when you are laid off. At this point, it doesn't matter if you are getting laid off because of your fault or the company is firing you. But usually it's 26 weeks if you are laid off by your employer. But because of this pandemic, the federal has extended it to 39 weeks. So they will cover your expenses, or they will pay you for 39 weeks. And the state is also covering you or paying you when you are laid off, and it's about $600 beside the one that is coming from federal. And it really depends on what kind of job you were doing. If you were, if your salary was at the higher end, you will get benefits according to that. If it's at the lower end, you will get benefits according to that. Then we also have put together some of the companies who are hiring at this time. And there are some jobs like a gig economy, like deliveries and working in Safeways or 7-Eleven. But there are also some companies who are hiring some highly qualified individuals, like cloud engineers or AI engineers or Internet of Things engineers. And some of the companies, I mean, the big names like AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon, even though they are the essential and vital part of the community, and it's important for them to be up and running, they have more, some of them has stopped hiring, or the hiring has freezed for them. So I was talking about the CARE Act also covers the gig economy if you are driving Uber and Lyft, or if you were doing DoorDash or anything like that. So these are the companies who were hiring at this moment. And we will share, inshallah, this slide. And the document also has the links, direct links to go to those websites and apply for the jobs. And let's move on to stimulus checks. As many of you know that federal has $2 trillion relief package for the unemployed and for the small businesses. So for the general understanding, or what we understand from the news, and I believe Naib Sadr Saab Hibi Bhai will talk about it more. The single person is getting $1,200 if you are earning around 75,000 per year, and if you are have a family, if you have kids, and you are earning between $75,000 to $100,000, and I think they have changed it to $150,000. You will get $2,400 for you and for your spouse, and for every kid you will get $500. So in the document, we have also put a link to use the calculator to calculate how much money you will get. And I was reading today that IRS is speeding up to credit the checks in your account. And it depends on your tax file. If you have filed the taxes, and if you have a link, if you have provided a bank account number, they will come to your bank account. If you have received the check, it will come in a check. So it's better to keep an eye on the checks or the bank account. So if someone is out there need immediate financial need, the procedure from the Jamaat is that you reach out to your Jamaat president with the details of your need. And I mean, it could be rental expenses, it could be grocery or something like that. And you guys know that Amur-e-Ama and Khidmat-e-Khalq are doing a lot of things to help the community in general and our brothers. So you will go to the Jamaat president with your request, and Jamaat president will forward your request to Amir Saab. Once Amir Saab will approve your request, I don't know what will happen after that. Maybe Naib Sadr Saab will know, or maybe we can talk to somebody in Jamaat to get more insight on it. So here's the link to get the to get the information of small business and how much loan they are giving, depending on the employees you have or the pays or expenses. As some of you guys know that MD Muslim lawyers have come together to help the brothers, especially those vulnerable people who have applied for asylum or in the middle of applying for asylum. We have a link here. It's a form that you can fill and get the help from the MD lawyers. And there is another link for state and country resources for legal help. And there are some links we have added to that document. We will share that document, inshallah, one more time and this presentation. And that talks about stimulus check, paid sick leave, student federal loan. The one link that you see at the top, this has very valuable links. And it gives you the insight if you have some federal loan, how to freeze that, if you have mortgage, utility bills. So many utilities are freezing the billing for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. It really depends where do you live. And the link down there is for the people who are in very, in very special circumstances, and they will receive the WIC and the daily nutrition, the groceries. And for those requirements, you have to go to that link to apply. From here, I will pass it on to Naib Mohtam Saab Umar Shahid Bhai to explain the tips and tricks to apply for the unemployment benefits.
Jazakallah, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. So first of all, I'm going to talk about the required documents to file unemployment. It doesn't matter which state you live in. The rules and regulations for these documents are kind of the same for every state. But first of all, I would like to, ask everybody in this chat, in this basically group, or if Nazmeen, Sanat al-Tijarat are here, please share the resource document we have been sharing with you. It's available in English and Urdu language with your local membership. It's a very important document. People who are losing their jobs, they definitely need some kind of a resource, and we need to make sure that they get help immediately. So filing unemployment, the first thing, you probably see number 2 is Social Security card, but the first thing is basically Social Security card. Hold on 1 second. All right, can you see me, Mohtin Saab, now?
Gee, we can see you.
Okay, so Social Security card. We definitely, every person who is filing unemployment, first and foremost thing is Social Security card. Everything is being tracked through Social Security card. Second thing is state issue ID. So it's required for exact name and date of birth. I can give you an example. I was filing one of the claim, assisting one of our MD brother. So his wife, she also used to work, and she also needed help to file her claim. When I was filing her claim, we realized that her name, the way she spells her name, is not matching with the name she has on her ID card. So this is very important. We need exact names, which is basically printed on their Social Security card as well as on the state ID. Residency requirement documents, basically. So if they are, most likely you're gonna be filing, a lot of people who are not US citizen, they're gonna be asking for this kind of assistance at this point. But our scope is definitely broader. We are gonna be helping everybody. It doesn't matter if they are citizen or not. But mostly, like people who are actually refugees or came here on asylum basis. So we need residency documents. If they are not US citizen, we need their permanent resident card number, which is alien number. They can find this alien number, which starts with A, on their PR card, which is also considered as a green card, or they can also find this card number on their I-94s. Social Security card for their children, if they are under 16 years of age, they need to have those Social Security cards available while filing the claim. Text documents, if they have any W-2s or 1099K, this is for 1099K form is for gig work like Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, or whatever you guys have like out there. So we need those text documents because when they enter the information in there, it asks you, like specific employer name and specific addresses and all these kind of things. Start and end date of their jobs for last 18 months. This is very important. So far, I have applied for like 4 different states, and on every state, I saw this question. You have to give them the starting date of the employment and the ending date of the employment. So for example, if somebody worked in a place at some employer from January 3rd till January 15th, they need that information. And then, like, what else did you do? So this kind of stuff they need. So in order to do this, basically, these are my recommendations, basically, I would say, because since I have been dealing with these people, I can see they either have no knowledge, they cannot speak English at all, some people, and some people have, they can't even read English, some people. So it's a little bit tricky, it's a little bit difficult. So these are the recommendations I have after like dealing with so many people. So first thing is each state and their different laws. Each state has different laws, rules, and regulations, but you need to you need the documents mentioned in the above previous slide. Basically, you need this document for each and every state before starting unemployment claim. So unemployment laws change all the time and vary by states. So get familiar with your state's rules. Also keep an eye on the news as government agencies are making changes to help Americans deal with the impact of COVID-19. If you want to save some time, definitely, please send this list of documents which basically you need to file the unemployment, text them, and have them basically, like text you back or call you back once they are ready, and have everything in their possession. Because like initially what happened with me, I was facing a lot of problems because like now I am basically new in filing these kind of things for them. And I have no idea what's the state requirements are. So I'm asking them, okay, do you have this thing? Oh, okay. So like, again, like in Urdu or Punjabi, like, oh, kithe hai ji, oh, social security card kithe hai. So basically this kind of stuff, like they start going, like digging into the drawers and stuff, and, like trying to find passport, trying to find social security card. Once you send this list to them, they have everything ready. Okay, now start. It's going to save a lot of time. I personally noticed and experienced. First case I filed, 2 hours. The last case I filed, in 1 hour, I filed 2 cases. So 30 minutes each case, which makes a huge difference, basically. If you send this detail to them and, like have them call you back or ask them to text you, perfectly fine. PII, personal identifiable information. Before starting the application, please ask if they are comfortable with sharing their personal identifiable information. Secondly, make it clear to the individual that his or her information will not be saved and only be used for filing their claims. First of all, try every single effort. Do not write down their social security numbers. Do not write down anything. Just type in and done. Because like we don't need this information, but make sure you make it clear to them. I had an experience with one of the person in New York. I was filing his claim and he shared his story with me, but he was comfortable sharing his information to me basically. Because like he said like, okay, we are Ahmadi brothers, you know, like I don't have any problem sharing with you, but you know, like I appreciate that you basically, you know, like clarified everything to me. So this is very important. Make sure you do that. Federal and state taxes. People don't realize that unemployment compensation counts as an income. That means your unemployment taxes. Make sure you clarify everything to them that federal, basically it's a 10%, state basically varies, it doesn't matter, you know, like it basically, where you live, which state you're living in, it depends on their state, you know, like, for example, like Washington, they don't have income tax. Certain other states, they don't have income tax. So, and each and every state, they have their different laws. So it's gonna be according to that. Make sure you tell them, because like, again, you know, like they are refugees, they are new to this country. They are, you know, like probably first time in this kind of a situation where they're losing their jobs, or, you know, like they're gonna be, you know, like getting this unemployment thing. They have no idea what's going on at this point. A lot of people have no idea. Whatever they hear from their friends, their coworkers, this is what they believe in. So make sure you clarify this thing. So state and federal taxes, make sure you clarify this thing, that it's an income and they have to pay taxes. Now, once again, example is filing taxes. Filing taxes for Maryland, unemployment, filing unemployment insurance claim for Maryland. They ask you if you want, you know, like federal and state taxes deducted from your unemployment check. If you click yes, then they're gonna send you a paperwork, which you're gonna be basically agreeing on that thing and send it back to them. It's not gonna halt or delay your unemployment insurance claim. What it says, basically, you agreeing with this thing. They are not gonna probably deduct from your first check. Probably not, I'm not sure yet. But once you submit that paperwork back to them, they're gonna start, you know, like deducting the unemployment, the taxes on your unemployment income. New York, I filed their unemployment. They ask you this question, and they say like perfectly fine. There is no paperwork required because like you have already submitted everything in there. So it varies. Again, each and every state vary. But try to convince these people that, you know, like pay taxes up front instead of, you know, like waiting at the end of the year, and it's gonna be a huge amount at the end of the year, because like probably they start working and now they have to pay taxes on whatever they are working for, you know, either gig work or whatever it is. And now they also have to pay taxes on this unemployment income. Reason for leaving the job. It's very important. Try not to use the option of quit medical reason. We are facing a problem right now with one of the case in Maryland, or any other option related to medical reasons. This can cause claim to be delayed, as state require a medical form to be filled out by your doctor or doctor of care prior to sending checks of your claim. So I'm not asking you to lie about the fact, but there are plenty of options you can pick from. So please make sure you pick the most appropriate one. If you can avoid the medical thing, great. If you can't, go ahead and pick that option. Keep your benefits current. Very important thing. Unemployment comes with a lot of rules. Follow them to keep your benefits and avoid stiff penalties like jail time. So once you find a job, let the state know immediately it's illegal to collect unemployment when you have a job for obvious reasons. Keep in mind that in some states, you might be able to work part-time while collecting unemployment. There are a lot of rules around unemployment work, so check with your state unemployment office before you take a part-time job. You probably would not do this, but we need to mention it. Don't treat unemployment as a cash cow. The state requires you to look for a job when you are receiving unemployment benefits. Every week you are required to contact at least 3 employers and try to find a job, basically, while collecting unemployment. You might need to call in and report on your application and interviews. You will want written proof of this too. Most states want proof of application and interviews. Whether it is an interview schedule or email, they want proof that you actually need help and that you are not bumping off the state. So it's illegal if you're working and collecting the unemployment at the same time. Collecting unemployment and going on a vacation, it's not gonna happen. It's illegal. Weekly claims, all unemployment insurance recipients are required to submit their weekly claim to avoid any gap in between payment checks. So basically, you create a login on their website, you submit the claim every week, and they give you basically they give you the time frame, basically. So if you are unemployed, if you get laid off, so please, and you are collecting unemployment, please try to get familiar with the website, with your local website, and submit your claim on weekly basis while collecting your unemployment, basically. So timing and patience. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, unfortunately, millions of Americans are getting laid off or furloughed from their jobs and filing unemployment. Certain states have set time frames to file unemployment insurance claims online or over the phone. Because of the high volume of applications being received, this is also causing unemployment insurance websites to run very slow. So again, it's very crucial time, definitely. A lot of people, like millions of Americans, are getting laid off. They are losing their jobs. Unfortunately, we have MD members as well, who are losing their job. So if you are filing your unemployment claim, make sure to, pick a time when you can feel that it's not a busy time, basically, to go online and start filing your claim. Because what happened, if you start filing a claim, you're on the second page of, filing your claim, or third page of the claim. And, now you click next and you see a web can't be accessed or something like that. You get the error. And now you have to start over everything, again. So try to, pick a time and be patient, because some websites, they are working, but they're extremely slow, running very slow because of the high volume of applicants. So if you're filing one claim, please do that. So, and the last thing is, if you ever have never experienced screen sharing, if you are filing a claim for one of our MD brother or sister, try using TeamViewer. It's a free software. Basically, you can download on your computer. Send that link. I have the link basically in here. Send that link to the person if you are filing someone's claim. And it's going to be a lot easier if you have their screen. Once they install the software, you're gonna have, like there's, you can basically, there is a procedure how you share the screen basically. And I'm sure a lot of people know how to share the screen, but if not, I have in the notes section, like how, and like the whole procedure, how to install and, do the screen sharing thing. If you can do that, that would be great, because like if, for example, let's say, like somebody is not comfortable sharing their social security number, they can type in there, like you can have them, like type in there your social security number. Okay, go ahead and please do that. Because like you will be controlling their screen. They do have the control, but you will be, at the same time, you will be controlling their screen. So it's a lot convenient, saves you a lot of time. And like it's going to be very convenient for both parties basically. So that's about it. If you have any questions, we'll, I think, answer later. I believe so.
Jazakallah, Naimuddin Saab. Before we move on, we have Anas Bhai, Regional Nazam LA, on the call. Mohtam Saab, he will share his presentation and he will talk about the art of saving money in this crucial time and in general.
Jazakallah. So Amr Bhai, if you just unshare your screen, there should be an option in the top.
Actually, I was sharing it.
Okay, Mom, so if you could unshare your screen, then Anas Bhai, if you can now share your screen. You're on mute, Anas Bhai. Okay, you should be able to do it now.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hey, Jazakallah. I couldn't unmute it without the admin permissions. Let me share my screen. Please let me know when you can see my screen.
Not yet.
So you just press share screen, and you have to, when the pop-up comes up, you have to click share on the pop-up. It'll be the bottom right.
Okay, let's try it again. Sorry, share. Okay, there we go.
You're good to go.
See my screen now. Okay. All right, so assalamu alaikum everybody. My name's Anas Chaudhry. I'm based out of LA. One of the topics that I'll be covering today is just the art of saving. If anything has popped up given the current COVID situation, it is the renewed focus for us as individuals and for our families to focus on saving, not only for situations like these, but in general, having it as a habit. So let me start off, but before I get into talking about saving, one of the important things that I want to mention beforehand is we should never prioritize saving. Our priority should always be to focus on the Islamic teaching of financial sacrifice. All right. I've added some excerpts here, but the one I want to read out is from the promised Messiah, alayhi salatu wasalam. He says, "It goes without saying that you cannot love two things at the same time. It is not possible for you to love wealth as well as to love Allah. You can only love one of them." The Holy Prophet ﷺ says, "You do not calculate when spending in the way of Allah, or Allah will give you in the same manner, but spend as much as you can." So before we get into saving, this is something that should always be on the forefront, right? Our first obligation is to adhere to God's commandments, and that's how we will have our wealth and our efforts blessed. Having said that, one of the things to always look at is the full picture, right? When you have, when you're looking at income or your funds, you have to look at the categories that those funds are going towards. So if I look at, I'm oversimplifying, and there might be a lot more categories here. But some of us are supporting families, whether it's wife and children, parents, or siblings, right? Chanda, we just talked about the financial sacrifice that is obligatory on us. Taxes, as Omar Bhai mentioned earlier, even on unemployment income, there's taxes, right? Health, retirement, discretionary spend, debt, and expenses. So today we'll talk about savings. I won't be getting too much into retirement or any of the other categories, but nevertheless, it's always good to compartmentalize the income or the funds that you have in these respective categories. Right? When I first started preparing this presentation, I wanted to understand, what is the general health of savings in America in particular? And what I found was pretty alarming. In addition to the crisis we're all experiencing, there is a general crisis of savings in the country. The Federal Reserve says an unexpected $400 expense would cause many Americans to struggle financially. Research also finds 60% of millennials don't have money to cover $1,000 emergency. All right, and if you look at the current situation, the $1,000 emergency is a very, very real emergency, not only from a loss of income, but getting and securing supplies, and so on and so forth, and trying to sustain your household for an extended period of time. It could easily span over more than $1,000. In addition to the financial struggles, there's research also suggests that the stress of finances has a very high correlation with mental health problems, including depression and anxiety. And it affects not only the psychological well-being of the individual, but has an impact on the entire household as well, right? And other research suggests that high debt levels contributed to either reduced marriage rates or higher problems at home. So with that, there's a couple of guiding principles that we need to look at when it comes to savings. First and foremost, like I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, follow the teachings of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, Promised Messiah ﷺ, and the Khulafa on financial sacrifice. I cannot stress the importance of this enough. You spend in the way of Allah, and He blesses you multifold in return. The other thing is, a lot of times in having these conversations with younger Khuddam or friends in general, there's this idea that, okay, well, once I get past this car payment, or once I get past this particular milestone, then I'll start saving. And the quick correction there is the best time to start saving is now, right? And it doesn't matter if you're saving $5, $500, or $5,000. The key is doing it, but doing it consistently, and starting right away if you haven't. Another aspect is living below your means. And we're taught as Ahmadi Muslims to really focus on not being extravagant with our wealth, and not being in this rat race that majority of the Western world is in. But living below your means helps to really enable you to save for not only emergencies but long-term financial health. Then there's this concept of, if you fail to plan to fail, right? It's if I get into a car with you and say, okay, let's go, let's drive, your first question to me is, well, where are we going, right? And the next question is going to be, how are we getting there? So planning is equally important. If you're trying to save for, let's say, purchase of a house, and you're trying to save a down payment, understanding, well, how much you need to make that down payment, and how long it's going to take, and what do you need to do on a monthly basis to achieve that goal. Building plans around that. And planning includes not only creating budgets, but also sticking to your plan and creating a discipline by actively managing your finances. What I mean by actively managing your finances is not treat savings as an optional thing, but do it in a way so you're doing it on a regular and consistent basis, and not sacrificing long-term sustainability for a short-term gain. Yes, there are going to be situations where you are unable to save, but then look at how you can recover on that plan. Drive down your debt. There's another misconception that, okay, you know what, I got $4,000 or $5,000 in the bank account, so I'm good on a savings, but not looking at the full picture, as I mentioned earlier, and looking at your debt. You might have a credit card payment that's outstanding that's got a 25% interest rate. So if you net that out, you're really not saving anything. In fact, you're hurting yourself by not paying down that debt as soon as possible. And looking at automating your plan. You can do it manually month to month and actively do it, but there's a lot of tools and capabilities available today, even with your bank accounts, to do automatic transfers. So as you get a paycheck that comes in, you're automatically transferring out savings first. You know, the idea of paying yourself first. General rule of thumb around emergency funds is you should be able to have 6 to 12 months of your income parked away. Now, I know that seems like a tall order for all of us that are employed, and or even for those of us who have their own businesses. But again, you know, this doesn't need to happen day one. This can happen on an ongoing basis. If you think about the current situation, and God forbid you're in a situation where you don't have that job, imagine what that cushion can provide for you. So you're not making rash decisions, or not increasing the stress, your stress, or the stress in your household. With that, there's this concept within the financial community around the 50-30-20 rule, right? The 50-30-20 rule says you use 50% of your income for necessities, 30% for wants, and 20% for either savings or paying off debt. All right. So some categories around that is necessities are, you know, food, shelter, utilities. Wants, you know, car payments, hobbies, outings. The reason car payments falls here is you can kind of determine the level of spend you're doing on your transportation, right? So again, use the principle of living within your means, and so selecting these necessities or wants accordingly. And savings and debt payments, savings can span around an emergency fund, paying down high interest debt, or even paying down debts that you have, whether it's car or house, and really moving towards financial freedom. So I kind of took this 50-30-20 rule and extrapolated that to what a khadim would experience according to this. So as a hypothetical situation, let's say you have an income of $100,000 gross per year. If you take on average 25% of that for taxes, deductions, and your 401k, you're left with about $75,000. From that, you know, first and foremost, you're looking at your chanda jat, and if I look at the calculations for someone who's not a musi, and you're taking into account both your Jamaat chanda and your Khuddam chanda, that is your chanda budget for the year, right? That leaves you with a net income of $68,775. Now, if we take that and apply that to the 50-30-20 rule, this is how the numbers shape up, right? And so you can do the same calculation and do the same extrapolation based on your income to see what it should be and where it is, and compare. If you're spending 70-80% on necessity, if you're spending 90% on necessities and wants and only doing 10% savings, can you chart a plan to go back and course correct in a way that it is more sustainable long term? Now let's diving into savings, right? An elementary way of thinking about this is, okay, I have a bank account and I'm just parking cash over there. But even within savings, you can have multiple categories. We talked a little bit around the emergency fund, which is 6 to 12 months of income. You know, you can have another category for down payment of a house. College funds is another category, and a lot of individuals don't know this. Most people who have kids are familiar with college funds, but nothing prevents you from creating a college fund for yourself as well, right? Other major goals that you have in mind, whether it is a major purchase, major investment, planning for a wedding or something of that sort, you can create a specific category of savings for that. Unforeseen major expenses for those of us who own a house, you know there are repairs that are going to pop up, and in some cases they're not optional. You got to fix the water heater, you got to fix the leak on the house, or even if you have a car, you know, things are going to pop up. There's going to be regular wear and tear. So having a bucket of savings for that. And then vacation and travel, right, or other hobbies that you have in mind. If you start categorizing your savings this way, then you have a very focused plan, and you're using these categories for what they're intended for, as opposed to having one bucket and carving that bucket out 10 different ways. Right. So how do you manage that if you were to categorize that? Right. Avoid impulse purchases that have long-term impacts. Plan your income. Nothing needs to be a surprise. Yes, you're going to have surprises, but if you have a savings category or savings bucket for unforeseen expenses, then it's you mitigate the risk that comes with that surprise. Distinguish between what is a want and what is a need. Right? Do you really need something? Is this a necessity? And if so, then invest or spend on it, and that's a justified expense. But is it really a want? Also, look at the timing of a want. We've all been in situations where, hey, there was this car I wanted or this computer I wanted, but is it better for me to go get a loan and do that, or is it better for me to save and buy cash and not deal with the additional finance charges? Those are the individual decisions that each person is going to make. The other factor is, savings is income minus expenses, right? So if you can increase your income, develop supplemental income, and work towards your saving goals, by all means do that. Can you propel in your current position? Can you take on more positions? Can you start a side business? Those are all good ideas to think about in terms of not only driving down your expenses, but increasing your income to increase your saving targets. And then lastly, there's a lot of tools, right? I know a lot of my personal friends have Excel files like the one baked before that you see underneath. But Mint, Acorns, Digit, your brokerage, these are all areas that can be leveraged. A lot of these tools are free. You can create your own tools to manage the savings that you think and manage your plan the way you see best. Talked a little bit earlier around automating savings. The one key point here is most banks and credit unions allow you to have multiple checking accounts. And you can open up checking accounts for your different savings categories and kind of create automatic transfers. So the minute your paycheck comes in, your savings has already gone out, and the only money remaining is what you have for necessities and wants. If you do that, just like for most individuals who are working at a job, when you get your paycheck, the taxes and withholdings are already taken out, so you don't factor that into what you're going to be spending. Similarly, if you add this layer of taking the savings first, you're not going to factor that into your day-to-day spend. And if your income isn't regular, for example, if you have a business or you work on commission and you don't get the same amount in the same interval, then you can either focus on creating that discipline, so you're doing that on a regular basis, or look at the minimum that is going to come in that you are very confident is going to come in, and set your savings and automatic transfers according to that. Let's talk a little bit around diversification of savings, right? It is never a good idea to have all your eggs in one basket. We've all heard this saying, and it applies to savings as well, right? There are many vehicles for saving: cash, commodities, stocks, mutual funds, and bonds. I'm not going to get into any one of these in detail, but the one thing I want to highlight is how you save and how you diversify. That is a personal decision. And it is determined by the level of risk that you want to take, right? Some of these vehicles offer returns, others are just stable, and that's up to you. And nobody is going to dictate that to you. But think about, is there a way to diversify? Even if you say, okay, I want everything in cash, do you want to keep cash in dollars, cash in pounds, cash in euros, right? And so there's a way to diversify even within one of these categories. And most of these vehicles can be automated as well. All right. So and a lot of these resources are online. A lot of these things can be done without investing into a financial advisor or things of that sort. If you can and have the means, by all means do it. But if you don't, it is an investment of time on reading and researching. The last point I would want to make, and after that I'll open it up for any questions anybody might have, is the importance of zakat, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, observe prayer and pay the zakat and lend to Allah a goodly loan, and whatever good you send on before you for your souls, you will find it with Allah. It will be better and greater in reward. Zakat is obligatory and it is not optional. It is 2.5% of one's cash, gold, silver, or possessions for one full year. All right. So if you're saving for a full year and you haven't utilized that money for anything else, you need to pay zakat on it, and it is payable yearly. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions, and if not, Jazakallah for your time. I hope this was beneficial for you. For all the research that I have in there or I highlighted, it's going to be in the notes on the presentation that's going to be sent out.
Jazakallah, Nisbai. Before we move on to questions, I just want to say, if you feel comfortable, you can ask your questions in Urdu.
Yeah, so as Mohtam Sahib has pointed out, again, for those brothers in the chat who have any type of language issues, you can request answers to be given in Urdu, or you can ask questions in Urdu. So we'll go ahead and get started with the questions. Again, we'll keep the same policy as we've been doing. If you want to raise your hand, you can raise your hand and ask your question. That's the preferred way to ask. But you can also text in your questions as well to the chat box of the admin account. So we'll go ahead and get started with the first question from Kaitab Oshkosh. Hashim, I'm going to unmute you.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah for a wonderful presentation. I think my question is a little bit, maybe a little off topic. Maybe, I hope it's not. But because you understand some of the financial stuff that I don't personally understand very well, I know there's things like, your 401k accounts and stuff with bonds you mentioned. And there's always this thing of this fixed interest or compound multiple interest and stuff. Now, that's, to my understanding, should be haram in our Islamic, standpoint. What is your understanding of those kind of saving accounts that give you interest and stuff? I know this topic has been discussed several times, but if you could just quickly elaborate on that. Jazakallah.
I can take a crack at that. So for me personally, right, I don't have any savings account. So when I talk about savings, it's not about opening up a saving account and collecting interest, right? It is, I've opened up multiple checking accounts where I manage cash. With regards to interest, all of these vehicles have different categories. Like if you look at mutual funds, you'll get dividends back, but that is generated income from an investment that you've made, right? But in general, the idea is not to go against the teachings of Islam, but there are still a lot of vehicles that are still available that allow you to do that without collecting compound interest.
And in regard to your question, Kaitab, as well, I think that the Khalifatul Masih Rabiz answered the question very elaborately as well in the question and answer session. I'll share the link in this chat box below, so you can take a look at that as well. So any other questions, go ahead and raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll start taking the questions from the chat box. Another question comes in. The other question comes in regards to having multiple jobs. If you've been laid off from your job, but you have a side business, can you apply for unemployment?
So Omar, but I don't know about unemployment, but I know you can definitely apply for the SBA loans, the disaster relief for small business owners, and payroll protection, even if you are you don't have any employees and you're the only employee in your business. So those are definitely available. Omar Bhai, I'll leave the unemployment question to you.
Yeah, I think Naib Sadr Sahab, Hibi Bhai can best answer that question. Omar Bhai, do you have any answer for that, or we can go to Hibi Bhai?
No, Hibi Bhai can answer, I think.
Okay, Hibiba, can you raise your hand so I can easily find you in the name section? Okay, got it. All right, Hibiba, you're good to go.
You sound like, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry, I believe the question was whether or not you can file for unemployment if you lost your job, but you have a side business. The answer to that question is yes, you can still file for unemployment if your primary source of income was your job, which you lost. You can still file for unemployment based off of that. They will ask you specific questions about any other sources of income as you fill out your application, in which case you should put in whatever side business and things you have, your earning income. And be transparent about it, but you definitely notate that your primary source of income, which was your employment, was lost, and you use that support and provide any context to those state officials during the application process.
Tika, so as the questions come in, I think that this is a very important session, so I think it's okay with to keep it going for maybe 10 more minutes. We'll take some more questions. A lot of questions are coming in. The next question comes in as in regards to, my question is about retirement accounts, 401k, 403b. Is it possible to borrow money from your 401k for down payment of a house during COVID-19? Is there any flexibility offered for early withdrawals?
So the answer to the first question is yes, you can borrow against your 401k if you're a first-time home buyer. The one thing that it's important to understand with how 401k accounts are set up, if you do borrow, you have to pay, you're essentially paying with interest back into your 401k, but you're paying yourself, right? So that's one drawback. The other drawback around leveraging your 401k to buy a house is that the money that you've taken out is no longer growing, right? So long term, the impact of withdrawing from a 401k early is very adverse. So based on everything that I've read and all the conversations I've had, that should be the absolute last resort. Your 401k is designed for your retirement, and that's what you should use it for. With regards to withdrawing from your 401k for the current crisis, I've read some reports around you have the ability to do that, and there's no additional penalties for it. However, the rule of paying yourself interest back into your 401k account still applies. So it's definitely a pocket of savings that's more long terms that you shouldn't be touching. But in emergency situations where you don't have access to any other resources, that is always the last resort.
Jazakallah. So Jazakallah for the answer. We'll come to the next question. The question is, can we apply for unemployment in 2 different states if there are 2 self-unemployment incomes in 2 different states?
So, the answer, I guess, to that question, it depends on what kind of employment it is. If someone is working as a driver and they deliver to 2 different states, I think that the location of where the business is or where your official office is that's where you can apply. I don't think you can apply it to unemployment for in 2 different states. I need to get clarification on that, so I don't want to overspeak or say something incorrectly. But my understanding generally is the primary place of employment where your headquarters or main office is located is where you would apply. One other thing I just wanted to clarify or to add is that the unemployment benefits also extend to those who've had their hours reduced or employment, their salaries or wages decreased, not totally eliminated, but even decreased. They're also eligible for unemployment benefits. So for those who've seen a cut in their hours, they've been cut to part-time, or they've been cut to, fewer hours, or they just notice a decrease in their business, if they're a gig worker, they can also apply for these unemployment benefits.
Jazakallah. The next question comes, where do we obtain the slides or budget Excel sheet? Is there a template? I think that this is what the question's asking. Is there a template that SoT can provide?
Ji Mohtam Saab, we have a template. We have it on the website. I will share with you so you can share with the people in the group. Is it okay?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. You can also share in the Islama Brotherhood, and I think people can see it there, or the MK Connects Brotherhood.
Ji, I will do that. Before we move on, I have two comments and one question actually. First, I'll go to the Salam Bhatti Bhai says that please also encourage everyone, if they are applying for unemployment, they should also apply for SNAP, TANF, Medicaid. Wives should apply for WIC if eligible. And the other question is from Namir Bhai that when should you file for unemployment if your employer is offering you a severance? I think for this one, we'll go to Hibbi Bhai again.
Hibbi Bhai, you should be able to unmute yourself.
So the question was, if you're receiving severance?
Ji. The question is, if
so while you're receiving those severance payments, you won't be eligible for unemployment benefits. But once that severance period runs out, then you can file for unemployment.
I don't see that there are any immediate questions right now, unless anybody else has any questions. I think we can generally wrap up. We're a little bit over now.
I would like to clarify one thing real quick. So Salam Bhatti Bhai basically updated me that the job search requirement is waived during this pandemic crisis. So just to clarify this thing, that every week that I mentioned that every week you're supposed to submit the job search, which is required by every state. Salam Bhatti, he mentioned that it's waived during this pandemic crisis. Just wanted to update. Jazakallah.
And to that effect, I just verified too that you are able to withdraw from your 401k account amid the COVID crisis. But again, the recommendation is that's a short-term fix, and you might be impacting yourself long-term. So.
Jazakallah. Jazakallah. So in the end, we'll close. I think we're a little bit over in time. So first and foremost, I just want to say Jazakallah to the Tijarat team for taking the time out. Alhamdulillah on both sides, from the unemployment side of things and also from the money saving thing. It was Alhamdulillah, great presentation. Salam Bhatti's raised his hand, so I just want to make sure. Let's see if he has any additional comments. Salam Bhai, I'm going to unmute you.
Hey, Assalamu alaikum. Really quickly, so the CARES Act from Congress that we've all been hearing about over the past month has loosened up, waived restrictions on unemployment, but it's up to each state to implement those changes. So your state may have waived that 1 week waiting period after you have lost your job. So that's something to look into when you apply for unemployment. If you had received unemployment and it got exhausted in January or February, your state may allow you to extend receiving the benefits. So it's worth reapplying because you're not likely to find a job in this climate. And finally, just to re-echo my earlier comment about filing for all the public benefits, all the public health options as well. If you are applying for unemployment, you should apply for food assistance through SNAP, cash assistance through TANF. If you have a wife with a child under the age of 5, apply for WIC. And I wouldn't recommend applying for COBRA, which is the health insurance after you lose your job, because that's really pricey. Go to the healthcare.gov and apply for Medicaid.
Jazakallah Salam Bhai. So we'll just wrap it up. Jazakallah again to the National Center Tijarat team. Alhamdulillah, it was a really informative presentation from many sides, and I learned a lot throughout the presentation. So Jazakallah to Mohtam Saab, to Anas Bhai, and to Omar Bhai for the great presentation. Jazakallah to Naib Sabi Bhai as well.
Jazakallah for the opportunity.
Jazakallah.
So in the end, I'll just make a couple quick announcements. I won't keep everybody too long. The next announcement is just in regards to tomorrow's program. So tomorrow there'll only be one session that will begin at 7 p.m. It's Quran Supreme. I know many of you guys have seen the Quran Supreme program. They have their chat. It'll be an interesting conversation as well. So that session will begin at 7 p.m. I highly recommend all Khuddam brothers to attend that session. There'll be interesting discussions surrounding the idea of marriage, arranged marriage, the concept of chastity within Islam, and especially in this Western society. So I highly recommend to all Khuddam brothers to take some time to listen to that. The next announcement is in regards to, again, the closing session on Sunday. It will be with the respected Amir Jamaat USA. He's going to be gracing us with his presence. And inshallah, we're all really looking forward to this session in which we'll have an opportunity to ask any question we have on our mind. A lot of changes are coming up. Jalsa has been postponed or canceled. We have questions about our Ijtimaat, Ramadan, Eid, a lot of different questions that are on people's minds. What should we do? And who better to answer those questions who's readily available to us than Amir Saab. So I highly recommend to all Khuddam brothers to join that. The other session I'll also announce is the question and answer session with respected Naib Amir Saab, Dr. Fahim Yunus, in which he'll be covering the topic of COVID-19 from a medical angle. There's a lot of misconceptions about COVID-19 out there and what we should be doing to best prepare for it. So we have a leading expert in the field whose specialty is in infectious disease, and he'll be giving us a great presentation and taking questions in regards to COVID-19. So I highly, highly recommend Khuddam brothers to please attend that session on Saturday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then again, the session with Amir Saab on Sunday. And again, with that session with Amir Saab, all Khuddam brothers are requested to join by 2:45 to guarantee your admission into the session. There's no promises after that if you'll be able to join or not. The door will be closed once Amir Saab enters. So again, please, again, join the sessions. Jazakallah everybody for joining. And inshallah, I'll see everybody tomorrow at 7 p.m. Jazakallah, and Jazakallah to the national SoT team. Assalamu alaikum.